Privyet, how are you guys doing? Good day, good night, wherever you are. My sleep schedule has been kind of weird lately because I have been going to bed really early and then waking up in just odd times of the morning. And I'm not talking like when the sun is up, I mean when the sun is still down, but it's technically morning. So, for example, I went to bed last night at 5 p.m. That's how tired I was. At 5 p.m., not a.m., 5 p.m. And then I woke up and the it was pitch black outside. I looked out the window and it was pitch black outside. I was like Barabbas when in that movie played by Anthony Quinn when Barabbas wakes up after the crucifixion and the sun is blocked because God is enraged at the world. And Barabbas wakes up and he's like, "What hour is it? What hour? What time is it? What time is it?" That's pretty much how I feel after waking up at that time. You know, basically going to bed at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. No, not 6. Going to bed at 5 p.m. and then waking up and the sun is down and it's pitch black outside. I woke up at 3 in the morning, so doing the Jocko Willing thing. But this is not because I'm super responsible or anything like that, or I'm super punctual. It's because I literally don't have a concept of time, or I do, I just don't care about the concept of time. Don't really care, don't really give a damn. Basically, if I have work to do, I will just do it. And when I feel tired, I sleep. And then when I wake up, I wake up. And right now, I've been waking up at 3 in the morning, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and then going to bed at weird times of the day. Anyway, this is the life of an insomniac. But I've been reading this book, almost done with it. I'm on page 100. I got 50-something pages to go. I forgot the name of the title. It's because I don't have the cover on it. Rethinking the Soviet Experience by Stephen Cohen or Steve Cohen. I don't know what to pronounce it, Stefan or Steven. There's a PH, and I was always taught as a kid that PH is a F. So whatever. Anyway, it's an interesting book, although I think sometimes Mr. Cohen just falls in love way too much with the sound of his own voice when he's writing, because there's a lot of Latin-based words in the book. There are so many, actually, Latin-based words, and it is kind of annoying. There's just a lot of just these, he puts in a bunch of big-ass words before he gets to the point type of thing, and it's just like, you could have written this in a way that's so much more enjoyable to read, but it's not. But anyway, in the pool of his intellectual ocean of big words, so it's not a pool, it's a big ocean, you can definitely learn something from this book. So what have I learned from this book? The whole point of the book is that the Soviet Union was not a monolith. It wasn't just one giant unit that always did the same thing, where everybody agreed with each other and where everybody agreed with Stalin. He shows in the book that there was plenty of disagreement within the Soviet Union. And basically, after the Bolshevik Revolution, there was this storm of extreme radical violence that was done by the Bolsheviks. But once the war was over, there was this duration of time within the 1920s in which the Soviet Union basically integrated capitalist ideas into its policy, because they realized, well, we really can't do this full hardcore socialist thing, so let's have more of a basically a market that's closer to the capitalist system. Let's allow agriculture to be privatized. Let's not socialize every damn thing. Let's allow some private sector business, and also let's allow some diversity of opinion. The term for this time period, or the term for this policy is, I want to say it's New Economic Policy. So NEP is the acronym that Mr. Cohen uses. New Economic Policy. The problem is that Mr. Cohen writes in a way that's just not accessible to the average person. So, for the average reader, this book is going to be annoying to read. I know, because it was annoying for me. But if you're just like a guy who loves reading about the Soviet Union and loves getting into that stuff and talking about Stalin and Khrushchev and Lenin, then this is the book for you. Again, I've learned a lot from this book. This is basically the first book that I've ever read about the Soviet Union. Everything else, like everything before reading this book, I've learned basically from reading stuff on the internet or reading some stuff from some books that weren't mainly about the Soviet Union. But this is the first time I've read a book that is solely about the Soviet Union. Now, the book talks about how after this era of the new economic policy was over, that's when Stalin took power. And once Stalin took power, he basically got rid of the new economic policy, and he did a huge wave of collectivization of the farms. And this collectivization led to a massive famine in which millions upon millions of people starved to death. Stalin also did a lot of repressive or oppressive policies, and a lot of people, millions of people, ended up in camps where they were kept as prisoners, tortured, and murdered. After Stalin died, Mr. Khrushchev did a plan. He executed a plan of de-Stalinization. So there was denazification of Germany after the Second World War. Well, after Stalin's death, there was the process of de-Stalinization. And in this time, Khrushchev began his plan to basically remove the policies of Stalin, to get rid of the policies of Stalin. And there was a secret meeting. Well, it didn't remain secret for that long, but nonetheless, Khrushchev, in this secret meeting, talking to a bunch of elite members of Soviet society, attacked Stalin for 4 hours straight, and he talked about people who were persecuted by Stalin or by Stalin's regime, and he quotes people who were persecuted by the government of Stalin. And Khrushchev had to be very careful about how he did things because, again, this was right after Stalin's death. A ton of people still loved Stalin. The cult of Stalin was still very real. A lot of people within the Soviet government were Neo-Stalinists. So he had to be very careful. So he did this. He kept this this narrative about Stalin that had two parts. And that was Stalin did a lot of bad things, but he also did a lot of good things. The bad things were collectivization of the agricultural section of society, the agricultural sector. The bad things were the mass arrests of Soviet citizens and putting people in camps and all these things. Everybody's heard all this stuff already. The good thing was that Stalin defeated Hitler. That's pretty much what it came down to. And also, under Stalin, there was a massive amount of industrialization in the Soviet Union. And Russia, under Stalin, went from being a society of mainly illiterate people to being a society of a lot of illiterate people, mainly literate people, sorry. It went from being a society full of illiterate people to being a society full of literate people, people who could read, and people who became very cultured. And Russia really developed its culture under Stalin. And this was one of the good things that was pointed out in the Soviet Union after his death. So, nonetheless, Khrushchev wanted to reverse the bad things that Stalin did, or at least some of the bad things. And so millions of people were released from the camps. After Stalin's death, there were still literally millions of people that were in camps in the Gulag archipelago, and a lot of these people were released under Khrushchev. And I think once de-Stalinization was commenced, about 500,000 people were released from Soviet camps every year. And it's very fascinating, actually, that there was this, it's like there was this huge cult of Stalin in Russia. So many people revered him. Some people revered him almost to the point where he became deity. It's crazy. Like there was a hymn that I read, and this is quoted in the book, where Stalin is, it says something like Stalin, the creator of man. And basically not saying that Stalin like created humanity, but that Stalin cultured us so well that he made us humans. Like he civilized us to the point where we're now humans, kind of. It's very weird, very strange. But that's the type of stuff that was being said. And after Stalin died, this reverence was expressed. But nonetheless, there was a decline in the public reverence for Stalin. And a lot of people came out saying that they were persecuted by him and that he really wasn't a great guy. Khrushchev went against the Neo-Stalinists, and the Neo-Stalinists hated him, and eventually he was overthrown. But nonetheless, this struggle in the Soviet Union continued on, and it still continues on to this day. I know of Orthodox Christians who despise Stalin. I actually knew a girl, a Russian girl, who she went to this ceremony where they placed like a wreath on the tomb of Stalin or something, and or it was like a statue of Stalin, and she went over there and just trolled them and started yelling at them, and it was pretty funny. But there's still a struggle going on. But it is it's not a good thing that Russians would revere the people in the Soviet Union who were mass murderers. Like, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, but there's still this struggle going on in Russia, basically between the Eastern Orthodox Christians and the people who are continuing on, or who want to continue on, the legacy of the Soviet Union. Very interesting stuff. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.